Hey, friend, I decided to embark on a journey to reinvent and transform my life in 2022. And I want to take you along for the ride. So stay tuned because for the next 10 weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you this amazing journey as I go through the Unleash Her Power Within program powered by Tony Robbins. Hey, friend, welcome back to third week of Unleash Her Power Within. I had to pause for a second because I'm actually on week 4, so I'm a week behind recording my progress, my journey, and I'm so excited to continue to share my journey with all of you. This week was the last week of the first phase of this program, which is the awakening phase. It's a lot about getting to know ourselves and self awareness. And this week, the theme for this week is decision making. And we always start with a quote. This week was a quote from Tony Robbins saying, "We can change our lives. We can do, have, and be exactly what we wish." And that is so empowering and so inspiring. And I think at this point, when we started the week, we started by realizing that there is no good or bad. There's just information and there's just where we are in our journey. There are no mistakes. There's just what is real. And I think this was a disclaimer that KK made at the beginning of our session because she have seen in previous generations that at this point of the program, people start to judge themselves. And I know I've been guilty of that many times. So it was really helpful for me to hear that. Along with that quote, it was really inspiring to say, today I'm starting from a blank canvas and kind of building something really special. In this week's session, we talk about the success cycle, or other people refer to it as the momentum model. And basically, what it is about turning beliefs into results by creating momentum. How amazing that is! Turning beliefs into results by creating momentum. And we talk about this cycle, right, that has 4 components. And we started to go through this cycle backwards, if you will. And I love that because every time that I set goals for myself, I always use the reverse engineering approach to my goals, right? I start with what is that I want to accomplish? What are the results that I want to get to? And then I reverse engineer that to determine what do I need to do to get there? And that's basically how this model works. So I was really excited because it's really aligned with kind of how I see this working and what has worked for me before. So it was a reinforcement of that, but also, it just made sense to me, just click with me. And this is an exercise. The whole session was about this exercise. And the important thing about this exercise is that we were asked to complete this exercise that I'm going to describe to you all in a second, not as who we are today, not as our new self, but as a third party, right? If you set goals from your old self, then you will come up with goals that are below what you're capable of and they're not aligned with the new self that you try to become. And that's why it's important to pull ourselves off our current self and look at this as a third party. And we started talking about the first step in this cycle is results, which, as I mentioned, generally that's how my mind works. I look at the outcome, I look at the result, I look at the goal that I'm trying to achieve, and then I reverse engineer. And that's exactly what we did. So we start with the results. And basically, what we started working on is, let's say that our old self, right, um, didn't exist. That our disempowering beliefs, our limiting beliefs, the ones I talked about last week, didn't exist. Um, what would the reality of the possibilities for you be? Like, what would be the results that you could achieve? How would your life could look like if your old self and your disempowering beliefs never existed? And that was a really powerful question. Like, what is possible for you in the next 6 to 12 months if you were not being held back by those limiting beliefs, but by your old self? And for me personally, this was when I got really excited because I saw it as a blank canvas to say, okay, many times when we set goals for ourselves, we are limited by our current capabilities. And I always, if you have followed my podcast, I always say, when you set goals, they need to be risky. They need to be beyond what you're capable of today. You shouldn't know how to achieve those goals or even feel afraid of not being capable of achieving them. They should be challenging and risky and bold because that's the only way you're going to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, and you're going to continue to expand that comfort zone and continue to grow. And that was a little bit of the same theme here, right? Looking at 6 to 12 months in the future. And if I wasn't being held back by my limiting beliefs, how could my life look like? And we did this as specifically for the 3 areas that we have selected on week 1 as our focus areas. So for me, 2 that I have been sharing with you here um, was or is relationships, career, and the third one for me is contribution. Those are 3 areas that I'm really focusing on through the length of this program. And for me, looking into the future and seeing what could be possible was so exciting. And I know when you do this exercise, some of the other women doing the program with me, they mentioned that they went back to their old selves when looking at this, and it was hard to look at this as this third party, you know independent, neutral view. For me, actually, was a really exciting exercise because I was able to decouple myself from my current self and think beyond the boundaries that I have imposed in myself today. And what I saw was so exciting. What I saw in my vision for the next 12 months of what it's possible sounded so exciting. And I think part of that is because I've already made some bold decisions in these areas of my life that automatically are putting myself in this blank slate. Like I mentioned on my career, I just quit my job and accepted an offer in a new company, and I see that as a blank slate. Like, I don't have to carry all my limiting beliefs with me into this new chapter in my career. And I think that made it easier for me to see this view really without holding back in any way, without being pulled back from my limiting beliefs. So I created a vision for my future where just want to share a couple of things, but really from the relationship perspective is really taking it to the next level. Some of my relationships, getting closer to some of those key relationships in my life. From a career standpoint, I saw myself thriving in this new job and being an impact player and a multiplier and adding value and making an even bigger impact than what I've been able to make so far. I see myself meeting new people, establishing my network and trust, and creating a brand for myself where I have this unique opportunity to create a brand from scratch, right? And I see that really as an opportunity where many people might see it as a challenge to say, I don't know anyone, like this is going to be hard. I see it as, oh my God, I get to do this without carrying all those limiting beliefs. So what I saw is really myself creating that solid personal brand, um, as an inspiring leader, as a multiplier, as an impact player. I saw myself really being passionate about what I'm doing, where time is flying by. that I'm looking forward to wake up every morning and I feel so fulfilled and so alive at work. Um, Again, connecting with new people, showing up as the best version of myself, as this new self, right? And I think this is, for me personally, a unique opportunity because no one knows me. So I get to come from the very beginning bringing all the best in me and leaving, again, my limiting beliefs, but also my shortcomings behind. I have created such a beautiful self-awareness in the last years, and that is why also I wanted to do a 360 evaluation before I left my current job and use that to really think of, what is that new self for me? How do I want to show up in this new chapter in my career? And I saw myself showing up just like that vision that I have for myself. So, and then when it comes to making an impact, I saw myself growing this podcast, reaching to more people, really selfless, like without any personal interest other than being able to be a positive influencer in other people, being able to mentor more people, to reach to more people. And that felt so fulfilling just to think about it. And, just thinking that you can have this vision for yourself without those disempowering beliefs that you have is so freeing. Doing this exercise is so freeing and so inspiring for me. So, we hone in on what those results are. What is that we want to accomplish? What could we accomplish if we could look at it as our new self? And then the next step is, okay, now that we know what is possible, right? Now that we know what is possible in the next 6 to 12 months, then we move to the next step of this cycle, which is actions. And here we were looking for specific and measurable actions that I need to take in order to achieve the results that I just visualized. And there is a quote from Tony Robbins that I have heard many times before, and it came up again in our session, that says, never leave the scene of a decision when you are at state without taking an action that guarantees you coming through with that. I'm sure I'm butchering the quote, but basically what it is that now that you have come up with what your results are, don't leave the scene of setting those results, setting those goals without taking an action that is going to commit you to following through, that is going to guarantee that you follow through on those things. The key here is coming up with crossable actions, things that you can cross off your list that are specific, that are measurable, that will get you closer to your goal. So, for example, let's say that you want to lose weight, right? A lot of people will come out with actions like eating healthy, right? That is a tiny action, is so generic. Like you can't cross that off and say, I've done it. It's done, right? Because that is kind of like an ongoing thing that can mean many things to different people, is not as specific, is not measurable, is not something that you can cross off your list to say, oh, today at lunch I ate healthy. I can cross that off and move on. So these actions are things, again, crossable, specific, measurable, and that set you that commitment that you're going to get through with those actions towards your result. So, for example, in this example of losing weight, it could be subscribe to a healthy food delivery service that, every week they're going to send me the meals to my house. And that way, the meals are going to show up in my house, and that's what I'm going to eat. And that is going to help me, you know, get through and be accountable, right? So that's what we mean by crossable actions. And it's important once we come up with those actions to add due dates to those actions, right? And even think about, how would you go about doing those things? Have a specific plan and even do those things right away. It's not just about thinking about them, but in this case, like it's going to the website and actually subscribing myself to this service right at the moment that I set the goal. And that also for me was so powerful, right? Because when I think about my goals and the things that I can do, typically I come out with actions that are broader, that are not necessarily measurable, but are more like gray, right? Things like it's hard for me to say, did I really accomplish it or not? Is it done or not? Is it what? So it was a little bit hard to come up with the actions, but once I came up with those actions and I actually implemented some of those quick actions right in that moment, like I felt so empowered. I felt like so on my A game. I felt so confident that I can actually accomplish the things that I saw when I was looking into the future 6 to 12 months from now and seeing what I'm capable of accomplishing. And then we move to the third step in this cycle, which is potential. And this the question is, what is the potential that you hold? What is the standard for how you show up? And this one was one of the most powerful things of this session. Because for me, well, I think I have a lot of potential, right? I interpreted potential differently. And here, potential means standard. What is my standard? And a lot of times we set standards for ourselves that are so unrealistic that we automatically set ourselves for failure. Let me repeat that one more time. A lot of times we set standards for ourselves that are so unrealistic that we set automatically ourselves to fail. So if I set a standard that I'm going to eat perfectly every single day for the next 30 days, am I really setting myself for success? Probably not, right? So, this was very powerful for me because I think I am a person that typically holds very high standards for herself, for others as well. But talking about myself right now, I have very high standards for myself. I have higher standards for myself than anybody else would have for me. And I think that a lot of times I set myself to be disappointed because it's just not possible for me to live up to those standards. So I will share with you what my new standard is, but I think that was so eye opening for me. That a standard doesn't have to mean that I'm always on. It doesn't have to mean that I'm perfect, right? I can build things on my standard that are going to safeguard my identity. And I think, the higher your potential, the bigger the actions that you're going to be willing to take. It's like a thermostat, right? If you have a thermostat in your house and it's set to 68 degrees, right? If if you start to show up at 65 or 64 degrees, that thermostat automatically adjusts the temperature. The same is for us, right? Those 68 degrees is the standard that we set for ourselves. In my case, I always set very high standards. And anytime that I'm performing below my standard, right, I'm constantly making efforts to up my game to the point that I can lead to burnout. So sometimes what we need to think about is, how do we adjust the thermostat? And those are our standards. And the same happens if you go above, right? If you set a standard that is too low and you show up at a higher level of potential, all of a sudden you start to see that gap and the thermostat starts to correct the temperature and you start to pull yourself down. So it's really dangerous, right? To set a standard that is too high or a standard that is too low. And I think that is the tricky part and is the key of this point of where are you setting your standard. And we all set our standards at is it was a 10. If our standard was a 10, what does a 10 mean for us? And it means different things for different people, right? In conclusion is we have to raise our standards in order to step into our new self. If we want to move from our current self or old self to a new self, we need to raise our standards. And that being said, I want to share with you what my standard or my definition for potential is. And I said my standard is a level 10. And here is how I define level 10 for me. And what you're going to see, what you're going to notice is that I moved away from expecting perfection. And this was a huge shift for me because I don't think I expect perfection from others, but I expect perfection for myself. And I'm really, really hard on myself all the time, which leads me to let myself down. So here is my standard. I am present, embracing all aspects of life. I have the capacity to hold it all: the joy, the passion, the love, the excitement, the growth, but also the pain, the boredom, the frustration, the stress. I don't run away, let it overwhelm me, or jump in to try to fix it all. I know that what is thrown at me is what I'm capable to overcome. I lean in and appreciate every gift of every perfect feeling and every experience because I don't want to miss on life's teachings. I always have a positive attitude and strive to the best of my capabilities and potential. I wake up every day never being afraid of changing, falling down, making mistakes, or losing, but always committed to give my 10, to lean in, to say yes to it at all, to learn from every experience and continue to grow and evolve. I continuously challenge myself and never give up. I go to bed every day feeling proud of giving my best and playing it all out in life. In that way, I am always a winner. That is my new standard for life. That is my new standard for myself. Then we went to the last step of this cycle, which you could say is the beginning of the cycle, really. It's where everything starts, and that is the belief patterns. These are like phrases that help you trigger your new standard, right? When you come out with this new standard, it's not like automatically you're going to live up to your new standard, right? It's not that all of a sudden you just reprogram yourself and you show up based on this new potential and this new standard, because you're always going to be doing that dance between the old standard and the new standard, and you're going to be faced with that decision line, and you're going to be dancing between the old and the new. So in order to hone in that new standard, we need belief patterns, which are phrases that can trigger that new standard. Things that can encourage you to tap on your potential, to reach out to the fullest of your potential. Knowing your standard is going to trigger action, and that action is going to lead to ultimately to the results that you want. When you increase your standard and you take extra large action, right? Is going to come That extra large action is going to come effortless. And when you take that extra large action, then it's more likely that you're going to achieve your results. But you need to have triggers that can trigger those new standards, that potential that you have. So here are, some of the triggers, some of the belief patterns that I came up with. So one that KK shared, and I'm stealing because I loved it, is wonderful, wonderful. What an invitation this is. So whenever I'm frustrated, right, I can say wonderful, wonderful. What an invitation this is. And that is going to trigger this standard of mine that I'm always learning, that I see every mistake as a learning opportunity. Also, life happens for me. Instead of getting into this defensive mode of my old self, of why is this happening to me? When life happens, I'm going to say life happens for me, and that is going to trigger me to find meaning in what is happening. Level 10 or not at all. That's another one. Time to make lemonade. Like when things don't go my way, I get really frustrated. If you know me personally, you know that when something doesn't go my way, I really get frustrated. So, one thing that I can say to trigger myself to move out of that frustration and more into creative mode and solution mode is let's make lemonade. Another one is progress over perfection. Another one for me is thank you for this learning opportunity. When I'm faced with a challenge, instead of, getting frustrated about the challenge, I can say to myself, thank you for this learning opportunity. And that is going to be an invitation for me to tap into my potential, into my standard that I'm always learning, I'm always growing, that I'm not perfect, but I can always learn. The other one is I won't give this power over me. And another one, trust the process. So, those are some triggers that I personally came up with for myself that I think when I'm in those situations where the situation itself is triggering me to pull back to my old self, I can use these triggers to step into my new self and tap into my potential and live up to my standard, my personal definition of my personal standard. So that is the cycle. And how it works is those belief patterns reinforce our potential, right? And when we tap in our potential, then we can take extra large actions that are measurable, that are specific, that are crossable, that are going to take us closer and increase the probabilities of us achieving our results. The one last piece about this that we talked about that last week on week 3, last week of the awakening phase, and it's kind of, I think, of the bridge to week 4 and the next phase, which is reinvention, which is one that I'm super excited about, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. And who knows, maybe I'll have some guests talking with me about week 4. But the last thing that we were left with was answering the question on who am I really? What kind of person I need to be in order to embrace that potential and to achieve these results, right? What is that new self? What kind of person I need to be in order to tap into that potential and achieve those results? And here are some of the things that I came up with. Is a long list and it's work in progress. I don't think I'm done doing this. I want to go even deeper and come up really with what is the kind of person that I am at my core, my true self, my new self. And actually, I want to do this for each of the areas of my life, but this is kind of a dump of my initial thoughts. Again, work in progress. I think by the end of this program, I'm going to have a more holistic list, maybe one that I prioritize even or clean up. So right now it's just brainstorming, but these are the things that have come up to my mind. So I am the kind of person that believes in herself and stands up for herself and her dreams. I am the kind of person that is strong and vulnerable at the same time. I'm the kind of person that is always grateful and shows appreciation for life and for others. I am the kind of person that focuses on building her future rather than reliving her past. I am the kind of person that is always asking herself where I want to go next rather than focusing on where I've been. I'm the kind of person that builds boundaries for herself and keeps promises to herself. I am the kind of person that I can count on, and so can others. I am the kind of person that takes care of herself physically, mentally, and emotionally. I am the kind of person that surrounds herself with people who inspires me, who are kind, who lift me up, and from whom I can learn. I am the kind of person that lets other people be wrong about me, that doesn't waste her time in trying to prove others wrong about who I am or how much I am worth. Rather, I am the kind of person that focuses on knowing my own worth, pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, and looking for ways to add more value to others and create a positive impact without expecting anything in return. I am the kind of person that generates and protects her energy. I am the kind of person that shows up at her as her authentic self without holding any part of myself back in fear of what others might think. I am the kind of person that has high expectations for herself and focuses in meeting those rather than others' expectations of her. I am the kind of person that knows herself at a deeper level, invests time in connecting with herself, in self reflecting, always with humility and kindness. I am the kind of person that loves herself no matter what, that loves herself with all her strengths and shortcomings, loves where she is in her journey while she's aspiring and working on becoming an even better version of herself. I am the kind of person that lives in the present, that enjoys every moment and embraces every emotion. I am the kind of person that forgives herself when she makes mistakes and looks at her mistakes as learning opportunities. I am the kind of person that celebrates every victory, every step of the way. I am the kind of person that strives for progress over trying to be perfect. And I am the kind of person that is always learning, growing, and evolving. So that is so far what I got. I know it's a long list. I need to clean it up. I know, but I feel proud of having come up with this list. And I feel even more proud that these are things that I'm already doing, that I'm already seeing myself this way. I'm coming up and showing up this way. And there's a few that I need to continue to work on. And that is why I'm in this journey this year. And that is why I chose to sign up for this program, because I think this is what I needed right now to reinvent myself, to transform myself, to really take my life to the next level. So I'm really excited to be in this journey. Week 3 was an amazing experience. I left feeling so empowered, so motivated, so fulfilled, and so eager to go into the next phase of reinvention and into week 4, which we're going to be talking about next week. It's all about mentor vision. So, that is the summary for week 3 decision making. Thank you for joining me along in this journey. I hope that you catch on a couple of things that I shared today that you can take on for your own life, that you can do yourself and try to ask yourself some of those questions and get into that self reflection mode. I always say self reflection is the foundation to create self awareness, and self awareness is so powerful. I think self awareness is at the foundation of personal growth. So that is a wrap for week through and for the first block of Unleash Her Power Within, which is the awakening phase. I'm excited to share this with you. Do me a favor, if you're liking this, please make sure you share it with someone. Go to Apple Podcasts, leave a review that helps to increase the visibility of the podcast. So excited, so humbled to share this with you, because whether you know it or not, you have become my accountability partner. Me sharing this with you is really holding me accountable in this journey. And I'm so grateful for you tuning in into the podcast, following along this journey, and hopefully inspires you to find ways to also increase your self awareness, reinvent yourself, and transform. With that, I hope you have an amazing day. I will see you here again next week for the continuation of this journey.